Hello, Taurus. Welcome in. I'm really glad you're here with me today. Take a moment, get comfortable, and just settle into this reading with me. Take what resonates and leave the rest. Okay, Taurus. There's something about this energy already that feels very quiet on the surface, but underneath it, somebody seems to be thinking much more seriously about you than they're letting on. The first card coming through is Strength. And honestly, I feel like this person is looking at you differently right now. You may have become harder for them to read. There's something calmer about you, something more self-contained. Maybe you're not reaching out the way you once did. Maybe you're not giving them the same access to your emotions anymore. And I keep sensing that they notice that. They may see you as someone who has regained control of yourself. Someone who isn't waiting around for them to decide what they want. And that seems to be making them think about coming toward you. The Knight of Pentacles is here, though, so this doesn't feel rushed. Actually, it feels almost painfully slow. I get the sense that this person may have imagined sending you a message several times. They may have thought about calling you, asking how you've been, or finding some simple reason to start a conversation. For some of you, I even feel like they've pictured seeing you face to face, but they hesitate. It's almost like they get close to doing something and then pull themselves back. Seven of Pentacles is coming out beside that, and yeah, Taurus, there's history around this. Maybe not for everyone in exactly the same way, but it feels like something was invested here. Time, emotion, hope, patience. Maybe you gave this connection more chances than you normally would because part of you genuinely believed there was something worth waiting for, and I feel like this person knows that. What's interesting is that they may be wondering whether you've finally reached the point where you're no longer willing to wait. The Ten of Wands comes through, and suddenly, this energy feels heavier. Something between the two of you may have become exhausting. There could have been too much left unsaid, too much uncertainty, or too many moments where one of you was carrying emotional weight that should have been shared. I keep getting this feeling that this person wants to put something down. They don't want to keep carrying whatever happened between you in the same way anymore. But here comes the Nine of Swords. Oh my God. Okay, this is where I feel their hesitation much more strongly. They may be worried about how you would respond if they reached out. They could be replaying conversations in their head, thinking about things they said, things they didn't say, or choices they made when perhaps they should have handled things differently. And for some of you, they may be asking themselves a very uncomfortable question. What if Taurus doesn't want to hear from me anymore? Because Strength keeps bringing me back to you. You don't feel like the same Taurus they remember having access to. There's a quiet boundary around you now. It doesn't necessarily feel angry. It feels more like you've learned something. You may still care. You may still wonder about this person from time to time. But caring about someone and giving them unlimited access to you are two very different things. And somehow, I think they can feel that difference. Yeah. I keep sensing somebody standing outside an emotional door, Taurus. They haven't necessarily knocked yet, but they're thinking about it. They want to know whether there's still a way back into conversation with you, maybe even a chance to see you again. But there's another question underneath all of this that feels much more important. Why are they so nervous? Because as I sit with that Nine of Swords beside the Ten of Wands, it doesn't feel like simple shyness. It feels like this person knows there's a reason you might not open that door so easily anymore. And I feel like we're getting very close to seeing exactly what happened here, and what they may finally be realizing about the opportunity they once had with you. The Tower sitting here changes the feeling of this connection in a very specific way, Taurus. It makes me feel like there was a moment when this person had something real in front of them, something that could have grown, and somehow they didn't know how to handle it. Maybe they thought there would always be more time. Maybe they assumed you would still be there whenever they finally figured themselves out. but something happened that changed the entire dynamic between you. And what gets me is the sun coming out right beside it. Because I don't feel like this connection was always heavy. There may have been a period when being around this person felt easy. You laughed together. There was attraction, warmth, maybe even that quiet excitement where you start wondering, could this actually become something? For some of you, I feel like you saw potential before they were emotionally ready to acknowledge it. But then we have the Eight of Cups. Yeah, somebody pulled away. Maybe they physically walked away. Maybe communication became inconsistent. Maybe they were still technically around, but emotionally, you could feel them withdrawing. Then Taurus, I feel like that may have confused you, because what happened didn't necessarily match what you had experienced with them before. There was something here. They knew it. You knew it. And yet somebody still chose distance. The Lovers comes through, and this is where things become a little more complicated. For some of you, this person may have been caught between two directions. There could have been another person involved, perhaps an ex they had never fully released, or an old connection that resurfaced at exactly the wrong time. But please don't force that message if it isn't yours. For others, the Lovers feels much more internal. This person may have genuinely cared about you and still been terrified of what choosing this connection would require from them. They could have wanted closeness while simultaneously wanting to protect their independence, their ego, or the sense that they were always in control. And here comes the Five of Swords. Okay, this is where I feel like somebody may have tried too hard to keep the upper hand. Maybe they withheld communication to see whether you would chase them. Maybe they acted less interested than they actually were. Maybe there were arguments where being right became more important than understanding each other. Or perhaps this person made a decision believing they could protect themselves from getting hurt. But the strange thing is, Taurus, nobody really won. You may have walked away feeling disappointed. They may have walked away believing they had maintained control, and somewhere along the way, the connection itself became the thing that was lost. The Wheel of Fortune appearing here makes me feel like enough time may have passed for this person to see the situation differently. Life has a way of changing the view once you're no longer standing inside the moment that created the damage. And I keep sensing that this person may be looking backward and realizing something they couldn't admit before. You didn't take the opportunity away from them. They had it. That's the uncomfortable part. They had your attention. They may have had your openness, your affection, perhaps even your willingness to build something slowly with them. And through indecision, fear, outside interference, ego, or simply poor timing, they may have allowed that opportunity to collapse. Oh my God. There's something almost bittersweet about the sun still being here, because it suggests that they remember the good parts too, maybe more clearly than they expected to. And Taurus, you may not even know how often those memories come back to them. Because what I'm feeling underneath all of this isn't simply someone missing what they had. There's a difference between missing somebody and realizing your own choices contributed to losing them. That feels like where this person is heading. And there's another card beginning to pull my attention because this story doesn't seem to stop at, I miss Taurus. It feels much more personal than that. Almost like they've been forced to look at themselves, at their behavior, at what they could have done differently. There's regret underneath this that we haven't fully touched yet, and I have a feeling this person has been sitting with it much longer than they would ever want you to know. Judgment is sitting here, Taurus, and this feels deeply personal. It's almost like this person has reached a place where they can't keep avoiding certain truths about themselves anymore. Not just what happened between the two of you, but how they showed up when they had the chance to do things differently. And I feel like some of those realizations may have come much later than they should have. Because right beside judgment, we have the Five of Cups. Yeah, this feels like regret. Not necessarily the dramatic kind where somebody suddenly falls apart and tells you everything they've been feeling. This person actually feels much more controlled than that. Their regret seems quieter, private, something they may carry around without letting anybody know how much it affects them. There's almost a sentence sitting underneath these cards. I wish I had treated you better. And for some of you, they may wish they had communicated better. Maybe they wish they had been more consistent. Maybe they recognize that they made you question something that should never have felt so confusing in the first place. The Emperor comes through, and this person still seems determined to keep themselves together on the outside. They may be someone who doesn't like appearing vulnerable. They could be very careful about what they reveal, especially when they feel like they've lost control of a situation. So if you were expecting this person to openly show how much they've been affected, you may not have seen it. They might look completely fine. They might stay busy. They might act like life has simply moved forward. But the Hermit tells a much quieter story. I keep sensing moments when they're alone, and their mind goes back to you. Maybe late at night. Maybe while driving. Maybe something small reminds them of a conversation you had, somewhere you went together, or even something you used to say. There's a loneliness around this that feels important, because when someone has enough quiet around them, there's nowhere left to hide from their own thoughts. And I feel like that's where judgment becomes so strong. They may be understanding that some of what happened wasn't simply bad timing. It wasn't all circumstances. It wasn't all you. There were choices involved. Their choices. King of Wands is coming in here too, and I feel like there's still a part of this person that wants to take action. They may imagine coming toward you confidently, knowing exactly what to say, perhaps even believing they could somehow bring the chemistry back into the room. But then I look at the Hermit again, and that confidence becomes much less certain. Because what do you say to somebody when you know they deserved more from you? That's not an easy conversation. And Taurus, the King of Cups appearing here, tells me there could still be genuine emotion underneath all of this. I'm not saying that automatically makes this person right for you, and it certainly doesn't erase what happened. But I do feel like their feelings may run deeper than what they allowed you to see. That may have been part of the problem. They controlled too much. They withheld too much. They perhaps assumed they would have time to explain themselves later, and later came with consequences. Oh my God. There's something very human about this energy, because I keep feeling like this person wishes they could go back to one particular moment and respond differently. Maybe say what they actually felt. Maybe choose you instead of protecting their pride. Maybe simply stay instead of disappearing emotionally. But they can't change that moment. They can only decide what they do with the realization they have today. And that seems to be where the energy begins shifting again. Because King of Wands doesn't want to remain in contemplation forever. There's an urge developing here to actually do something with these feelings. The question is whether they'll have the courage to move beyond thinking about you and actually speak to you. Because I'm starting to feel communication gathering around this connection, Taurus. And if that conversation does happen, I don't think you're going to hear it from the same place you once did. You've changed too. So what happens when someone carrying this much unspoken emotion finally finds themselves standing in front of a Taurus who no longer needs their explanation in order to move forward? The Two of Cups comes through here, Taurus. And there's something different about the energy immediately. This doesn't feel like somebody who is satisfied just thinking about what could have been anymore. I feel an urge to close some of that distance, to actually create a moment where the two of you can speak honestly and see what is still there. For some of you, this could begin very simply, a text, a phone call, maybe a message that looks casual on the surface. Something like asking how you've been, or bringing up something familiar between you. For others, I feel like this person may want to see you face to face, because there are things they don't know how to communicate from a distance. But Taurus, I want to slow down here, because the Devil has come out beside the Two of Cups. Yeah, the attachment feels strong. This person may have tried to disconnect from you emotionally, and discovered that it wasn't as easy as they expected. There could still be attraction, longing, unfinished feelings, maybe even a tendency to obsess over what you're doing or whether you've moved on. And that doesn't automatically mean they're ready to offer something healthier. That distinction feels really important. Because the magician is here too, and I feel like this person may be thinking carefully about how to approach you. They may want to say the right thing. They may try to create an opening, remind you of what was good between you, or show you a version of themselves that feels more confident and intentional. For some Taurus, that could be sincere. For others, you may need to ask yourself whether you're seeing genuine change or simply someone becoming very persuasive because they're afraid of losing access to you. Okay, and look at this, the Queen of Swords. I actually love this energy for you here because it doesn't feel bitter. It doesn't feel like revenge. It feels clear. You can listen without immediately believing everything. You can care without abandoning your boundaries. You can allow somebody to explain themselves without feeling obligated to give them another chance. That feels like such an important shift, Taurus, because perhaps there was a time when hearing from this person would have completely changed your emotional state. Maybe one message would have had you analyzing every word, wondering what it meant, hoping it was finally going somewhere. But you may not be standing in that same place anymore. The Six of Swords comes through, and I feel like any conversation that happens here could reveal just how much emotional distance has developed between who you were then and who you are today. There may even be physical distance for some of you, but more than anything, this feels like two people trying to figure out whether they can move away from an old pattern without carrying that pattern into whatever happens afterward. And then, justice lands on the table. Oh, Taurus. This is where words meet accountability. If this person says they've changed, you may want to see what that actually looks like. If they say they want another chance, what are they prepared to do differently? If they tell you they regret hurting you, can they acknowledge what happened without making excuses? Because I don't feel like you need a perfect speech from them. You may simply need honesty and consistency. There's something very mature about the energy around you here. You're not being asked to punish this person forever for their past, but you're also not being asked to pretend the past didn't happen just because feelings still exist. The Two of Cups can open a door. It cannot decide what you do once that door opens. And I keep feeling that distinction very strongly. Maybe you hear them out. Maybe something softens. Maybe you realize you still have feelings too. Or perhaps the conversation gives you clarity that you didn't even realize you needed. Whatever this becomes, Taurus, your choice matters just as much as their desire to return. And there's one more layer showing itself here, because even if two people still care about each other, that doesn't automatically answer the bigger question. Can this actually become something stable? Can the old obstacles be handled differently this time? Because the energy coming through around that question feels surprisingly hopeful, but it also asks for something neither of you can rush. Temperance feels like such an important card to land here, Taurus, because there's no pressure in this energy. Nothing is asking you to rush toward a decision simply because somebody still has feelings for you. If anything, I feel like this connection may need room to breathe before you can truly see what it could become. And that matters, because the Two of Pentacles is showing me that there are still things that may need to be sorted out. For some of you, this person has responsibilities, priorities, distance, work, family, or simply an emotional life that hasn't been completely brought into balance yet. Maybe they've spent so much time reacting to circumstances that they haven't really created space for a relationship to grow in a healthy way. You may have experienced that inconsistency before. One day, they seemed present. Another day, they felt miles away. And Taurus, I don't feel like you're interested in living inside that uncertainty forever. The Seven of Wands comes through, and I actually feel your boundaries very strongly here. You may still have feelings for this person, while also recognizing that access to your heart has to look different this time. That isn't punishment, that's wisdom. You've learned what happens when you give too much patience to something that isn't meeting you halfway. So if this person does approach you again, perhaps the most important thing won't be what they promise in that first conversation. It may be what happens afterward. Do they stay consistent? Do they communicate when things become uncomfortable? Do they show up when there isn't an emotional crisis pushing them toward you? Because anyone can miss someone. Building something with them is different. And then, the Four of Wands appears. Okay, this is where the reading softens. There does seem to be potential for the energy between you to become lighter again. For some Taurus, I could see an opportunity to spend time together, reconnect, or simply experience each other without all of the pressure that surrounded the past. It doesn't have to mean that you immediately become a couple again. Maybe you begin with a conversation. Maybe you meet for coffee. Maybe you allow this person to show you who they are today, instead of deciding everything based on who they were before. And with the Ten of Cups sitting beside the Four of Wands, yeah, there is a beautiful possibility here. But possibility is the word I want to hold on to. Not certainty, not destiny. Possibility. There could be emotional fulfillment available if both people are willing to participate differently. There could be a version of this connection where communication becomes safer, where neither person has to guess constantly, where affection doesn't come with the same emotional confusion. The Knight of Cups feels like someone trying to move toward that possibility. Perhaps they offer an apology. Perhaps they finally say something they were too guarded to say before. Maybe they simply approach you with more sincerity than you remember. But Taurus, you don't have to decide your entire future based on one beautiful moment. Temperance keeps reminding me of that. Let time reveal what words cannot. Let patterns reveal intentions. Let consistency reveal whether this person is truly ready. And please don't hear this reading as a message telling you to wait for somebody. I actually feel the opposite. Keep living. Keep choosing yourself. Keep building the life that feels peaceful and solid beneath your feet. If someone wants to become part of that life, they can meet you there. You don't have to stand still while they figure themselves out. Maybe this connection finds its way into a healthier chapter. Maybe the two of you discover that there is still something worth exploring. Or maybe hearing this person out simply gives you the clarity to understand why everything happened the way it did. Whatever resonates, Taurus, I feel like the deeper message belongs to you more than it belongs to them. Strength brought you into this reading as someone they may see differently now, and temperance leaves you here without needing to force anything. You can still love someone and have standards. You can forgive someone without immediately trusting them again, and you can leave a door slightly open without standing beside it, waiting for somebody to walk through. So if they do come toward you, let them show you. You don't have to fill in the blanks for them anymore. You don't have to turn potential into a promise. Just watch what they do, listen to what your own heart is telling you, and allow whatever is meant to unfold between you to reveal itself in its own time.